Well, I think I still remember that 2 years ago I wear the same clothes that in front of the our DSI auditorium room and introduce myself and my why I can do DSI, my passions to the future. And after 2 years journeys, we land here, and I gonna present my thesis project with you guys. So I'm here to talk about museums. I think you all knows that I love museums. I explored so many different museums during the past 2 years, living in a New York City, and museums always reminds me of education, art, beauty, public culture, history, and peace. But it barely crossed my mind of what it takes to bring a museum to life. It's the people. It's the museum staff. Who are they? They are board, directors, curators, educators, security officers, and from different departments and different position levels. But there's a lack of ethnic diversity in staffing. According to a national survey on demographic by Mellon Foundation, they found around 70% of intelligence and decision-making positions are held by whites in the United States. It means that only 30% of staff in the intelligence and decision-making positions are made up with black, indigenous people of color. So what was less than 30% of BIPOC staff experience in museum industry? So in the traditional pathway to elevate the staff voices is to report issues to the HR department, but there are big trust issues between them and HR department because of a lacking history of following up on complaints, and HR departments exist to protect the institutions instead of the individuals. The traditional pathway is not sufficient for BIPOC staff to speak out and be heard. So from the interview and the surveys, I asked BIPOC staff to use 3 words to express their experience working in the museums. Some of the experience they share say that they feel unheard, they feel passive aggressive, ignored, and undervalued. BIPOC staff experience of museums is very different from mine as a museum goers. Museum staff, BIPOC staff facing discrimination and unequal treatment in their workspace. Most of the time, their voice is silenced and unheard. So, what can we do to make their voices heard and visible to museum leadership? In the further research that we understand museums as a public institutions that are committed to serve and be accountable to the public. And museums are dependent on the public financially through donation, visitation, and engagement. So public opinions play a significant role influencing the direction and decision made by museums. Outside pressure causes museums to change. So there are some groups that are trying to raise the public awareness of BIPOC staff experience. However, we think there are more opportunity to elevate BIPOC staff voices more. And for example, is the Change Museum. It's Instagram accounts that they post the experience of BIPOC staff with all text. But research shows that the visual information can be processed 60,000 times faster than text, and people tend to remember only 20% of what they read, and while around 37% of the population are visual learners. Visuals are more accessible and compelling to the public. So I teamed up with Inclusion, my community partner, an organization creating a space to build community, connect people, share resources, elevate the experience around issues of inclusion and justice in museums. So after all discussion and iterations, we came up with our final thesis statement. how may we elevate the voices of museum BIPOC staff to the public in a visual, compelling way, so that the public can engage in issues and take actions to pressure the museum's leadership? So to achieve the goal, we came up with 3 prototypes to answer the questions below. Are BIPOC staff willing to share their story, and how? What's the best way to transform the written story into visual expression? If the visual expressions have the strong impact on public opinions and stimulate the conversation to put the pressure on museum leadership. So we co-designed with a format with either quantitative and qualitative questions to collect information from BIPOC staff. We're very mindful to avoid sensitive information such as museum names and any other detailed information. And we worked on executing the survey design appropriately in terms of the layout, the language, and the confidentiality. So what we learned from the prototype, actually people are very willing to share the story and the platform. And some of them are looking forward to reach out further and very appreciate our motivations. The second prototype I did with visualizers that we use the story and data that we collect to test out the visual transformation process. The exercise includes providing the story and data, and after they read the stories, they can reflect on their thoughts, feeling based on the leading questions such as, how do you feel after reading the story? And what information stood out to you? And then brainstorm individual approaches which help them convey their ideas, and finally, they can create their own visuals. In addition, I did some workshop with to test our story database user experience and workflow with different type of visualizers. To answer the question like, what is the best UX design for the visualizer to access and navigate the database? And what's the best way to credit and support them? So after finish the 2 types with visualizers, I designed a guideline to navigate the site and the publishing process. So there are some visuals created by different visualizers. One of the visualizers say that he had fun with it and it's very good practiced. And one illustrator feels happy and frustrated during the process. Happy about contributing to BIPOC stuff, frustrated about what they experienced. So in order to understand if the visual expression had a strong impact on the public opinions and stimulate the conversation, I end up with final prototype with the public, the museum goers. So this is some very positive feedback we got from the audience. They said the visuals bring the experience and the staff frustrations to life. And some people reflect on themselves that, what role do I play as an audience? Am I also discriminatory in my behaviors? So how can we bring all of these elements together? We conduct with Final Intervention Museum Unmuted. It's an online platform that collects story from museum BIPOC staff and connect with visualizer to produce original visualization based on the story repository in order to stimulate the conversation and understanding of BIPOC staff experience among the public. So the reason to build out a standalone website is to create a dedicated space that connect BIPOC staff, visualizer, and the public, and also can be more official format to store and showcase the story and visuals. And also we will have more opportunity to develop more activities and brandings. So how does the website work? So there's a portal that the BIPOC staff that can submit their experience, and they will be stored in our database. The story will be stored in our database, and the database will be available for visualizers to download, review, and generate into visual expression. The package for designers include raw data sets, guidelines to navigate the process, and different formats to open the data set. So after the visualizer generate the creation, they can submit them along with all the information with their works. And the visual will be present on the gallery for all of us to browse. And then the audience can reflect their feelings, demands through the audience engagement portal. And we will publish the anonymous reflection, and also in the future we'll be able to share with museum directly and through the press. And we also provide more resource article, update news about museum BIPOC stuff for an audience. So what's the future of the Museum Unmuted? So by building out the platform and the infrastructures that connect BIPOC staff, visualizers, and the public, we are creating a strong brand that has the opportunity to take the discussion offline and into the real world. Additionally, by creating a strong and recognizable platform that we can extend our service as a valuable brand representing the unheard voice of BIPOC staff. Through this position, we can design educational and workshop content to offer consultation service to museums to better listen and support the BIPOC staff. So when the unsolved problem exists among two communities, what we can do as a social designer is to create a platform that brings new connections, interactions, by designing an ecosystem, engaging, understanding, and changing the experience of the BIPOC staff doesn't just benefit them, but benefit everybody when our museum reflects the diversity, equity, inclusion they claim stand for. That's Make Museum Unmuted. Thank you.